Pastor Maldonado raced in Formula 1 for 5 seasons, driving for Williams and Lotus, with his greatest achievements coming from the 2012 Spanish Grand Prix, where he took pole position and race victory after a race-long battle with Fernando Alonso, achieving Williams' first victory since the 2004 Brazilian Grand Prix. Maldonado became known by many F1 fans as the guy who crashes a lot, which led to him becoming a meme and gaining both many fans and critics. In 2016, Pastor Maldonado was originally going to drive for Renault alongside Julian Palmer. However, with major political and financial trouble hitting Maldonado's home country of Venezuela, Maldonado's sponsors were unable to pay for his F1 seat, meaning that Maldonado was in breach of contract and was replaced by Danish driver Kevin Magnussen, ending Maldonado's F1 career. There were rumors of Maldonado negotiating with Williams and Manor for the 2017 season, but both of these failed to materialize, if they were true. In this video we will talk about how Maldonado's career would have developed if he had been able to continue in Formula 1 in 2016 and beyond. 2016. For Maldonado to continue racing in F1 from 2016 and beyond, only one thing has to go differently. Maldonado's sponsors such as PDVSA has to continue funding his career like they had since he was in the feeder series such as GP2. It is easy to figure out how Maldonado's 2016 season would have gone. He had signed a contract to drive for the Lotus team, which was eventually bought by Renault. Julian Palmer had also signed a contract for Lotus before they became Renault, meaning that Renault's 2016 driver lineup would have consisted of Maldonado and Palmer. One unintended consequence of this is that Kevin Magnussen would not have an F1 seat for the second year in a row. In interviews he gave around this time, Magnussen made it clear that if he did not gain an F1 seat in 2016, he would give up on racing in Formula 1 and focus on racing in other series such as the World Endurance Championship. This would most likely cause a domino effect that would affect Haas's driver lineups in the following seasons. The 2016 season would go on with Maldonado and Palmer at Renault. Unfortunately for the drivers, the Renault RS16 was unreliable and off the pace. The car was very similar to the Lotus E23 used in the 2015 season, with the only major difference being that the RS16 used the much less competitive Renault power unit compared to the E23's Mercedes power unit. In 2016, Renault scored points on 3 separate occasions, with 2 of those coming from Kevin Magnussen and 1 coming from Julian Palmer. With all of this information, it is likely that if Maldonado was to continue in F1 his 2016 season, he would have been left disappointed with an uncompetitive car and few opportunities to score points. Whether Maldonado would be able to capitalize on those opportunities is debatable. Personally, I think Maldonado could have scored points in 2016, but I doubt he would have scored as many as Kevin Magnussen did in our timeline. 2017. 2017 is where predicting Maldonado's career gets trickier to figure out where Maldonado could have gone. Renault made it clear that they wanted to retain one of their 2016 drivers for the 2017 season, since that driver would be able to compare the RS16 to the RS17, which was built under the new regulations. It is believed that Renault originally intended to retain Kevin Magnussen for 2017, since he had performed better than Palmer in 2016, until Kevin Magnussen announced he would drive for Haas in 2017 instead. With this in mind, where Maldonado goes in 2017 would mainly depend on how he compares to Julian Palmer in 2016. If Maldonado was to convincingly beat Palmer, then Maldonado would have remained at Renault for the 2017 season alongside Nico Hülkenberg. However, if Palmer had beaten Maldonado, then Palmer would have remained at Renault like in reality, and Maldonado would have had to find a seat elsewhere. We will discuss both 2017 scenarios. Option 1. Remain at Renault. In this scenario, Maldonado convincingly beats Palmer in the 2016 season, meaning that Renault decide to retain Pastor Maldonado to race alongside Nico Hülkenberg for the 2017 season. This would mean that Julian Palmer would have to look for a seat elsewhere in F1 for the 2017 season. He did bring money with him, and he was still young with a GP2 championship to his name, so finding a seat wouldn't be impossible. Maybe he could find a seat at a team who were looking for paid drivers like Williams or Sauber, but unfortunately I think that if Jolyon Palmer lost his seat at Renault, then he wouldn't be returning to the grid in 2017. But back to Maldonado, how would his 2017 season have gone? The Renault RS17 was much better than its predecessor, with the car achieving many Q3 appearances, scoring 57 points to gain 6th place in the Constructors' Championship, and Hülkenberg was even able to fight for podiums in Baku and Singapore. However, most of Renault's good results in 2017 came from Hülkenberg, and not Palmer, who scored points on one occasion in 2017 with a very impressive 6th place finish at the Singapore Grand Prix. Palmer would eventually be replaced by Carlos Sainz at the US Grand Prix. In this alternative scenario, Maldonado would most likely have a season similar to that of Jolyon Palmer in our timeline, with 1 or 2 opportunities to impress and score points, but overall still being convincingly outperformed by Hülkenberg. And since Renault certainly didn't need the money that Maldonado could bring, I wouldn't be surprised to see Maldonado replaced by Sainz in a similar fashion to how Palmer was dropped. Option 2. Leave Renault. In this scenario, Jolyon Palmer outperforms Pastor Maldonado in 2016 and Renault replaces Pastor Maldonado with Nico Hülkenberg for 2017, leaving Pastor Maldonado to look elsewhere for a drive in the 2017 season. From my research, there were 2 teams which in theory Pastor Maldonado could have driven for in 2017, Williams and Sauber. It is believed that Pastor Maldonado left Williams on somewhat bad terms at the end of 2013, which could hinder Maldonado's chances at signing for Williams in 2017. Also, Williams had signed Lance Stroll, who brought just as much money with him, and for the second seat Williams wanted to keep one of their current drivers for 2017, which was originally going to be Valtteri Bottas, until Nico Rosberg's shock retirement led to Felipe Massa keeping his seat. So unless Williams decided that they would rather hire Maldonado instead of Lance Stroll, I doubt that Maldonado would have gotten a seat at Williams. Pastor Maldonado's chances at Sauber would have been higher. Sauber's driver lineup in 2016 consisted of 2 paid drivers, Marcus Ericsson and Felipe Massa. However, at the end of the 2016 season, Felipe Massa's main sponsor withdrew their support, meaning that Felipe Massa wasn't bringing the money Sauber was hoping for. This, along with various other reasons, led to Felipe Massa's departure from Sauber. Pastor Maldonado could have taken advantage of the situation to get a drive for Sauber in 2017. At this time, Sauber was suffering financially, so if Maldonado still brought as much money with him as he did in 2015, I could see him getting the Sauber seat for 2017. Since the only money Pascal Wehrlein could bring was an estimated $4 million courtesy of Mercedes, it is unlikely that Wehrlein would have been able to compete with Maldonado's money, which would have left Wehrlein without a drive in 2017. An unlikely third option is that Pastor Maldonado could have gone to Manor and used his sponsorship money to revive the team, but this is highly unlikely with the financial situation at Manor being so severe. Overall, I think the most likely outcome is that Pastor Maldonado would drive for Sauber in 2017, with Pascal Wehrlein most likely becoming the reserve driver for Mercedes. In 2017, Sauber had a terrible season. They was consistently off the pace thanks to them having to use the previous season Ferrari power units, and overall their car just wasn't good enough. Sauber only scored points on 2 occasions. At the Spanish Grand Prix, courtesy of Pascal Wehrlein's amazing drive to an 8th place finish, and at Baku, where Pascal Wehrlein scored a 10th place finish, although this should have gone to Marcus Ericsson if team orders didn't occur. In this alternative scenario, Pastor Maldonado would have spent most of the season at the back of the grid, and while I doubt Maldonado or Ericsson would have achieved a points finish at the Spanish Grand Prix, Maldonado would have had a great opportunity to score points in Baku, since only 12 cars finished. All that Maldonado would have had to do was not crash like most others did and finish ahead of Stoffel Vandoorne and his teammate. Personally, I think that Ericsson would score the point at Baku, which would have left Pastor Maldonado pointless in 2017, while teammate Marcus Ericsson would score 1 point. For the 2018 season, Sauber announced a deal with Alfa Romeo, with them becoming the title sponsor. A condition of this deal was that Sauber had to hire at least one Ferrari junior driver, which was Charles Leclerc. Since Marcus Ericsson's sponsors owned Sauber, Pastor Maldonado would be left without a seat at the team. 2018. Both of these scenarios end with Maldonado losing his seat, but could he have found a drive elsewhere in 2018? With his sponsorship money, it is possible that Pastor Maldonado could remain in F1 for the 2018 season at Williams due to Williams wanting to hire the driver who could bring them the most money in 2018, which ended up being Sergei Sirotkin. It is possible that Maldonado's experience could have given him a leg up compared to the other candidates such as Sirotkin and Kubica. However, since Pastor Maldonado left Williams at the end of 2013 on not so good terms, this could affect his chances of getting the seat. Personally, I think it is unlikely Maldonado would have got a drive at Williams in 2018, and even if he did, it would have been another season at the back of the grid. In conclusion, if Pastor Maldonado was able to continue in F1 after 2015, most likely he would have had disappointing seasons with few opportunities to shine, and I doubt Pastor Maldonado could have changed his reputation over these seasons with the exception of crashing less over his later seasons. So maybe it was for the best that his F1 career ended in 2015 after all, so we can mainly remember him as an error-prone but fast driver. Thank you for watching this video.